Hi, it's Noelle. So I'm back here to show you what we're going to do with our wedged piece of clay. So this is a piece of clay we're working with. It's nice and flat on one bottom, and you can see it's not that big. It just fits in the palm of my hand. And we're using this size to work on making a small pinch pot. A pinch pot is the very first pot any potter will ever make in any classroom, no matter how old they are, and it's a great way to get a feel for how the clay feels under your hands, how much you can manipulate it and move it. And we're gonna focus on turning this little ball into a small cup or bowl shape. So I have a few tools with me to help. The first is my banding wheel. So this is called a banding wheel. You can see this one's had a lot of love over the years, and it spins. So this is my manual wheel. It doesn't have a kick pedal and it doesn't have electricity. So when we do more hand building as opposed to throwing on the wheel, we use a banding wheel. Next, I like to put a bat just like the animal. I don't know why it's called that either. Right on top of our banding wheel. So banding wheel and then bat. Okay, I have a sponge and I'm gonna get my bat just a little damp right in the middle where I plan to put my clay. Just damp, it's not soaking wet. And I'm gonna try to put my clay right in the middle. All right? Okay. I'm gonna spin it and just try to smooth it. Now I'm standing, but we can do this seated. That's just as good. I don't really need any tools for making a pinch pot. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start off by opening up the center. And so I'm just using one thumb, okay? It's a little closer. All right. And what I'm doing is I'm using my thumb and my fingers to pinch it. And as I'm pinching it, I'm squeezing and I'm pulling clay from the outside, and I'm carefully opening up the middle. And I want to try to get this hole in the middle as symmetrical as possible. So I want the amount of clay around these edges to all be the same thickness, okay? So let's keep working on that. I'm going to tilt this up a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm not just pinching from this top rim, because if I were to just pinch from this top rim, I would make it really skinny at the top and it would still have a lot of clay at the bottom. And you can see that I'm using the rotation of the banding wheel. I put a little water on it because it's getting a little dry. I'm going to use the rotation of the banding wheel to help me get this as symmetrical as I can. And sometimes I need to smooth with my finger as I go. So something I want to point out is at the very top, sometimes the clay gets really dry on this top edge. That's really normal. And you can tell it's starting to get a little dry because it will look a little bit like elephant skin or maybe even like alligator skin. And so I can just take a little bit of water, not too much, and I can soften it. All right, so I'm still squeezing. And this was about 3/4 a pound of clay. I'm paying careful attention. I'm turning mine into a small bowl, maybe for one of my favorite fruits, which are blueberries. And you can see I'm still just using my hands. there's really no need at this point to use any tools. Because what I'm trying to understand here is how the clay works. Like, how wet can I get it without it falling apart? How dry is too dry and uncomfortable to manipulate it? And also, what's gonna make the most pleasing appearance? Okay. Still pinching. And you could work on this for a while. So this, I've only been really working on this for about 4 minutes. But if I had 10 minutes, how smooth could I make it? How wide open could I make it? Or tall and vertical? So what kind of shape do I want to make? And so sometimes I like to make drawings before I make my pinch pot, so I have an idea of what shape I'm after. Or maybe I want to make a set. So I want to make a berry bowl for myself, and maybe I want to make one for my husband and my 2 kids too. So if I was to make 4 pinch pots, I'd want them all to look about the same. So I would plan for the same amount of clay from the beginning. And then I would probably make them more or less on the same day, because sometimes it's easier to duplicate a shape if we're doing it all at the same time. Okay, so that's pretty good. I'm making sure that my rim here isn't too thin and too thick. And so this is just a basic beginning pinch pot shape, yeah? And I could spend a lot of time refining it, but for the sake of the video, I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. Now, because I'm a teacher and I make things like this all the time, I don't mind when things don't work out. In fact, I'm used to it. I have to throw out a lot of my work that for whatever reason doesn't make it into the kiln, or I'm not totally satisfied with it. So I make a lot of rough drafts in the studio. And it's important to learn that rough drafts are really, really important to getting your final piece great. So one thing I will do is I will test myself. I will actually cut open right in half my bowl. And let's take a look at the cross section here. I'm just gonna scrape off this little edge here so we get a good view of what I did. Okay. So this is the cross section of my pinch pot. And I can look at it and say, okay, where did I make some mistakes? And where could I improve upon it? Well, one area I can improve upon it is right here. And this is called the shoulder. And this is the hardest part to get symmetrical and even. And I can see that the amount of clay that I have at the shoulder is thicker than I have on these higher walls. So next time I make it, I might work harder to pull this clay from right down here, okay? After my pinch pots are done, I let them dry, and I can put them in the kiln. After the first firing in the kiln, then I can paint them or glaze them, and they get refired, okay? And so that's our pinch pot.